difference between life and death, because you were supposed to be sitting at your desk 10 feet from where the bomb exploded.
That's correct.
And these men had come in who weren't normally there, but they came in to talk about hiring. And yet he's the one who died, and you
Yes.
got up to go get your bagel and coffee. And I think you talk in your book about survivor's guilt. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that impacts people?
Absolutely. The question that I had, that I still have sometimes, is why him and not me? My desk, that whole area was totally demolished. Why did I walk away at that moment? And I always ask myself, why did I survive? Why did I live? What is my function? Why did that happen? And I think part of that is now I am increasing awareness about PTSD and sharing my story to help other people realize that their responses are normal responses to trauma, to validate people's emotions, and to increase people's awareness that it doesn't go away. It's not a forgive and forget kind of thing, or it won't go away with time. It's with you.
Right.
I feel like that's probably my mission. Yeah.
Right. And I like what you said about purpose, that when you survive something like that, it makes you think more strongly, wait, I was spared for a reason.
Exactly.
Now I had a very minor such experience. Well, I mean, it was much more minor than yours, but it left me with the same feeling. And this was the 6 weeks where I kept having horrible experiences. And as I joke, my farmhand got very good at going, oh, are you okay? And one of these was when our UTV, I thought it had maybe just gone out of gear like it sometimes does, and it was on a steep hill. So I got behind to rock it, and he was on the side rocking it, but something was broken inside, and so it came rolling straight back at me. And I was right behind it, and somehow I ended up flat on my back in the brush and dead branches that we had piled there next to it. And I have no idea how I ended up there, but it was very much the same feeling. I spent weeks just with this overwhelming sense of, I'm living on borrowed time. I better make good use of it.
Yep.
That could have been the end, but I can relate to that. And I'm sure that virtually everyone who's experienced something like what you did, or even less, has that experience. No. I think it was your very first duck tolling retriever. Do they have anything to do with ducks, by the way?
Well, actually, tolling is a behavior in which they run back and forth parallel to the shore, and that actually attracts the ducks and the waterfowl.
Oh, interesting.
And they fly in, and then the hunters can shoot.
Not the smartest birds in the world, are they?
No, and it actually really does happen. I have seen it happen.
That's awesome.
They're just playful. You don't have to train them to do this. They just play and jump around and flash their tails, and the ducks fly in.
That's amazing. And Turner, I think, was your very first, and you call him your first service dog. I got the impression he wasn't really trained specifically, that it just came naturally.
It came naturally to him. I never thought I would have a service dog. Never really occurred to me. And then he was kind of naughty. And I had to work really hard with him. And so as a result, we established a very tight bond, and he could read me as well as I could read him. And he would know if I was having a hard day, if I was off balance emotionally, and he would not leave my side. And I had a lot of difficulty regulating myself when it rained, because the day we were evacuated, it was pouring and I was soaked all day in and out of the rain. And if I was taking him to an event and it was raining, he would not leave my side at all. And I, at one point, realized that that was the reason, that he just was not he would lean into me and provide pressure and was there for me, but he would not leave me alone. So he was a pretty remarkable dog.
And it sounds to me, I got the impression this was a dog that was almost God-given, brought into your life when you needed him. And As I was reading it, I was thinking so much of my Irish Wolfhound because I felt so much the same way about her, that she just was more than a dog. And she just was exactly what I needed. And kind of a hard time in my life. And
Yeah, he would get me out of bed on days that I just couldn't get out of bed. If I was scrolling on my phone and saw something or even something on television that was a little bit violent, which I could not tolerate, he would immediately either block me from seeing it or knock the phone out of my hand so I couldn't continue. And then I'd be like, okay, you broke the cycle.
that's great.
I had only 2 weeks left before heading to graduate school out of state and hoped that my leaving New York for education wouldn't make things worse with the FBI and NYPD. I felt conflicted about leaving or staying in New York because of the flight risk issue. Graduate school seemed like my best option, even though apathy about my studies had snuck in. In fact, indifference was my predominant attitude about most things, including running, being with friends, and even talking. What happened to old Jane, who was gregarious, motivated, and confident? My identity was gone. I tried my best to move on according to my father's wishes, but I got stuck in nothingness. One of my last evenings at home before departing for school, my mom and I sat together sipping on a glass of Gallo red wine, as we frequently did when my father came home late from work. I decided to talk to her about how I was feeling differently since the bombing. Mom, I don't feel like Jane anymore. Well, who do you feel like? I don't know. Not Jane Margaret. And why did you name me Jane Margaret? Well, my darling daughter, she explained, your father and I agree that if you were a boy, you'd be named Harold after him. And if you were a girl, your name would be Jane after me. Margaret is your grandmother Scarpino's first name. I took a few sips of wine as my brain tried to process the irony of my name selection. My father's name was Harold, but everyone called him Skip because he hated Harold. My mother's real name was Florence Jane, but since she hated Florence, everyone called her Jane. My maternal grandmother's name was Margaret. However, she called herself Marguerite because she hated Margaret, but the family called her Lady. Was I even named after my mother and grandmother? This conversation with Mom was fascinating. My family members used other names because they didn't like their birth names. Maybe I should do that. So, Mom, if you didn't name me Jane, what name would you have chosen? Did you have a favorite name you were saving for another girl? Well, my dear, she sighed, I wanted to name you Christiane, but your father wouldn't have it. At that moment, I became Christiane. From that point on, I told everyone my name was Christy. However, memories of Jane lingered. The FBI and NYPD officers who needed me for their investigation called me Jane. Everyone who knew me before the bombing, including my family, called me Jane. I started to insist that everyone call me Christy, which people, especially my family, found difficult. Now I allow people who knew me before 1977 to call me Jane, but post-1970 friends and some family call me Christy. At that moment in 1977, the persona of Jane was dead.